Today's lesson is 4.1, page 103, add and subtract multi-digit decimals. Our learning target today is I can add and subtract multi-digit decimals to the thousandth with or without a model. Step it out. The 10 by 10 grid represents one whole. There are 100 squares, so each square represents 100th or 100th of the whole. Find the sum of 1300 plus 5800 using a 10 by 10 grid. Okay. Part A, how can you represent 1300ths on the grid? So this is 100 square, so there are 100 squares. So in order to represent 1300ths, we would shade in 13 squares on the grid. So I can shade 13 squares on the grid. Okay, so I'll shade the entire first row plus 1, 2, 3 more in the second row. So those are going to be 13 squares that I'm shading in. Okay, and then shade in those 1300ths. So that's 1300ths of the square that we have shaded in. And then part C, how can we represent 5800ths on the grid? Shade 58 squares. Okay, so here we only have 7 left. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know I'm going to need to add the 8th one at the end. So I'm just going to put a little 1 for a tally mark over there. So this is, and then I'll shade 57. So here's 7, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So all of this row is going to be shaded. Okay, all of these 5 rows plus these 7, that's 57. And then we need 1 more to make 58. So we'll shade in, here's 50, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. There's that 10 by 5 area shaded. And then here's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 5700. And then this 1 square will make 5800. Okay, so how many total squares are shaded? So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 1 total squares are shaded. So 1300 plus 5800 is 7100. So that's just the area model. And one of our learning targets is that we're able to use an area model to show, but we also will need to be able to read them. So it's not just about using it if you need it, it's also about being able to interpret it. So knowing how to read the area model. Okay. Next, adding decimals is similar to adding whole numbers. You must first write the numbers so that like places are aligned. So when you're adding whole numbers, you add the ones places together, the tens places together, so they need to be lined up. Then we add from right to left and regroup when necessary. Number 2, while at a grocery store, Robert bought 2600ths of a pound of red grapes and 3400ths of a pound of green grapes. How many total pounds of grapes did Robert buy? You can use a table to align the places of decimals to make it easier to read. Write 3400ths in the table at the right. So they've already written the 2600ths for us. 0.26 is 2600ths. And then we need to add in the 3400ths. So 0.34. And then write in your equal line. And then add from right to left, regrouping when necessary. So 6 plus, so starting at the right, just like we do with whole numbers, and we make sure we line up the decimals. So put our decimals are lined up. So we're adding whole numbers with whole numbers, tenths with tenths, hundredths with hundredths. So 600ths plus 400ths is 1000ths. 6 plus 4 is 10, right? The 0, carry the 1. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6. We lined up our decimals, and 0 plus 0 is 0. So part B asked us if we needed to regroup. So yes, we did right here. 6 plus 4 was 0. So yes. 6 plus 4 is 10, excuse me. So we wrote the 0 and carried a 1. So altogether, Robert bought how many pounds of grapes? Zoe, 60 hundredths pounds of grapes, or 6/10. So we'll write it as 60 hundredths because our problem had hundredths, but that's the same as 6/10. Okay, and we'll pause the camera for a moment for the video to talk about how is adding decimals different from adding whole numbers, and then talk about that at your table group. So how is adding decimals different from adding whole numbers? Okay, now we're at the top of page 104. We're working on number 3. Find the difference between 42 hundredths and 19 hundredths using a 10 by 10 grid. How can you represent 42 hundredths on the grid, and how can you represent subtracting 19 hundredths? So to represent 42 hundredths, we would shade 42 squares. To represent 42 hundredths. And then to represent subtracting 19 hundredths, we would cross off 19 squares. So to represent subtracting 19 hundredths, cross off 19 squared. Okay, so first of all, we'll shade in 42 hundredths. So 10, 20, 30, 40 plus 1, 2. So 42 hundredths is what we're going to shade in. Okay. And then we want to subtract 19 hundredths, so we'll cross off 19 squares. Okay, so this is 19, so we'll cross off this entire row of 10. And then we'll cross off, so that's 10, and then we need to cross off 9 more. Okay, and this leaves us with what remaining? So we have 2 full rows, so that's 10, 20, and then we have 1, 2, 3 single squares. So 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 23 shaded squares remain. Which means 42 hundredths minus 19 hundredths is 23 hundredths. So 23 squares would be left. Okay, and then we can also represent that with, I'll just for subtraction, here's the algorithm for it. So 42 hundredths minus 19 hundredths. Okay, we can't, and we line up the decimal. We can't subtract 9 from 2. So we go over here to the 4 and borrow 1. And that 4 becomes a 3. The 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 0 minus 0 is 0. So there it is with the traditional algorithm. Number 4, a cardinal weighs 1.5 ounces. Find the difference in ounces between the weights of a cardinal and a bluebird. The weight of a bluebird is shown in the caption. Okay, so what subtraction problem can you write to represent this situation? So we would need to do the weight of the cardinal, so 1.5, minus the weight of the bluebird, excuse me, which is 1.09. Okay, and so write 1.5 in the table, add a 0 as a placeholder. So we would write this as 1.50, and then we want to subtract the weight of the bluebird, so that's minus 1.09. Write your equal line. Okay, we can't, and then we'll subtract, regrouping when necessary. We can't subtract 9 from 0, so we come over to the 5 and we borrow. The 5 becomes a 4. That makes our 0 a 10. 10 minus 9 is 1. 4 minus 0 is 4. Line up your decimal, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So the weight of the cardinal is blank ounce more than the weight of the bluebird. So the weight of the cardinal is 41/100 of an ounce more than the weight of the bluebird. Okay, we'll pause for the turn and talk. So this turn and talk asks, how can you subtract a decimal from a whole number? Okay, and now we have the 4.1 check for understanding. Julia has $1 for a snack. She buys an apple for 49 cents. How much does she have left after buying the apple? So we can count up from 49 cents to $1 and get 51 cents that way, or we can subtract. We would write that $1 as 1.00 because we know we need to have the tenths and the hundredths, the dimes and the pennies. And then we need to subtract 49 cents, and we're very careful to line up the decimals. Okay, we can't do 0 minus 9, so we need to regroup. We borrow from the whole number, the 1 becomes a 0. Then we regroup it to the dimes, the 10th place. The 0 becomes a 10, and then we borrow from that. It becomes a 9, and then over here, this 0 in the 100th place becomes a 10. So we have 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 4 is 5. Line up the decimals, and then we have 0 minus 0 is 0. So she will have 51 cents left over after buying the apple. Number 2, a group of friends spent $31.95 on movie tickets and $12.54 on refreshments. How much money did they spend in all? So when we see words like and then in all, this is lets us know that we're adding things together. So we know that they spent $31.95 on the tickets, and so here's our plus, we're adding $12.54 on refreshments. So we line up the decimals and we add 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 plus 5 is 14. Write the 4, carry the 1. 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. And 3 plus 1 is 4. So they spent $44.49 in total at the movie. And that was Module 4, Lesson 1. Add and subtract multi-digit decimals.